Story 1. I'm a junior at State University, majoring in engineering. This semester has been brutal, especially my advanced calculus class. I've always struggled with math, but this professor makes it 10 times harder with his impossible exams. With finals week approaching, I knew I needed serious help. That's why I booked study room 204 in the library 3 days in advance. The reservation system requires you to log in with your student ID and select your time slot. I picked the prime spot 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. on the Thursday before my Friday exam. I even got confirmation emails and everything. The room was perfect for my study group. My roommate agreed to help me review, and we planned to use the whiteboard to work through practice problems. I'd been failing this class all semester, and this exam was literally make or break for my GPA. Thursday afternoon, I showed up at 1:55 p.m. with my backpack full of textbooks, calculators, and energy drinks. I swiped my card, and the door clicked open. The room was empty and clean, just like I expected. I started setting up my materials on the table when I heard my roommate coming down the hall. But instead of just him, I heard loud voices. I looked out the door and saw a middle-aged woman with short blonde hair talking very loudly to one of the library staff members. She was wearing a velour tracksuit and carrying a huge purse. Staff member: "Ma'am, this room is reserved from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. today." Karen: "That's ridiculous. I was here first. It's first come, first serve." Staff member: "Actually, all our study rooms operate on a reservation system. You need to book them in advance." Karen: "I don't care about your stupid system. I'm here now, and I'm staying." The staff member looked exhausted. She was probably a student worker just trying to do her job. Staff member: "Let me show you the reservation log. As you can see, this room is booked under a student ID." Karen: "Those logs are fake. You probably just made that up to kick me out." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I walked over to join the conversation. "Excuse me, but I reserved this room 3 days ago. I have the confirmation emails on my phone." Karen spun around to face me with this crazy look in her eyes. Karen: "I don't care what you think you reserved. I'm a taxpayer, and I pay for this library. That means I have more right to be here than you." "This is a university library. You need to be a student or faculty to even get in here." Karen: "My daughter goes here. That gives me the same rights." Staff member: "Ma'am, that's not how it works. Only registered students and faculty can reserve study spaces." Karen: "This is discrimination. I'm being discriminated against because I'm not some spoiled college kid." By now, other students had started gathering in the hallway. Finals week stress was real, and everyone was protective of their study time. Random student: "Just let them have their reserved room." Another student: "Yeah, there are other spaces if you just want to sit somewhere." Karen: "Shut up. None of you know what you're talking about." She pushed past me and marched into the study room, plopping herself down at the table where I'd left my books. Karen: "I'm not moving. Call whoever you want." The staff member looked at me apologetically. Staff member: "I'm so sorry about this. Let me call security." She radioed for help, while Karen started rearranging my textbooks and notebooks like she owned the place. Karen: "These books are in my way. Someone needs to move this junk." Those are my materials for the room I reserved." Karen: "Well, they're my materials now. Possession is 9/10 of the law." I was getting furious. This exam could determine whether I passed or failed the class, and this crazy woman was completely derailing my study plans. 5 minutes later, 2 campus security officers showed up. They were both really professional and calm. Security Officer 1: "What seems to be the problem here?" Staff member: "This lady is refusing to leave a study room that's reserved by another student." Security Officer 2: "Ma'am, do you have a reservation for this room?" Karen: "I don't need a reservation. I was here first." Security Officer 1: "Can we see the reservation system?" The staff member pulled up the computer system on her tablet and showed both officers the booking. Staff member, as you can see, this room was reserved 3 days ago for today from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Security Officer 2, ma'am, you'll need to leave this room. The student has a valid reservation. Karen, this is outrageous. I'm calling the police. I'm calling the dean. I'm calling my lawyer. Security Officer 1, you're welcome to do that, but you still need to leave this room now. Karen, I'm not going anywhere. You can't make me. The security officers exchanged a look. Security Officer 2, ma'am, if you don't leave voluntarily, we'll have to escort you out of the building. Karen, you can try. I'll have all your jobs for this. Security Officer 1, all right, ma'am, you've made your choice. They each took one of her arms and started walking her toward the door. Karen was screaming the whole time. Karen, this is assault. Help, I'm being attacked. Security Officer 2, ma'am, please stop yelling. You're disturbing other students. Karen, I don't care about other students. They're all entitled brats. As they walked her down the hallway, about 20 students had gathered to watch. When they saw her finally being removed, everyone started clapping and cheering. Random student, finally, some peace and quiet. Another student, thank you, security. Karen, you're all going to be sorry. I'm reporting this to the news. Her voice faded as they escorted her out of the building. The staff member turned to me with a huge smile. Staff member, I'm so sorry about that. Your room is all yours now. Me, thank you so much for handling that. My roommate had been filming the whole thing on his phone. Roommate, dude, this is going straight on social media. That woman was absolutely insane. We went back into the study room and spent the next 4 hours reviewing calculus. Thanks to that uninterrupted study time, I actually passed my exam the next day with a B-. I never saw Karen again, but I heard from other students that she tried to complain to the administration. Apparently, they told her the same thing: the reservation system exists for a reason, and she had no right to take someone else's booked space. The best part, my roommate's video got shared around campus, and Karen became known as Study Room Karen. Every time someone mentioned her, people would crack up remembering how she got dragged out by security while insisting that reservation logs were fake. Some people really think the world revolves around them. Story 2. My grandfather started our family pumpkin farm back in the 1960s. When he passed away 5 years ago, he left the property to me. It's only about 12 acres, but it's been my livelihood ever since I quit my office job to run it full-time. The farm sits right off the main highway, and every fall, families come from all over the county to pick pumpkins, take photos, and enjoy our corn maze. The thing is, running a small farm isn't easy. Between the seeds, equipment maintenance, and seasonal workers, every dollar counts. That's why we charge a small entry fee during October, just $10 per family, to help cover our costs. Most people understand and are happy to pay. We even have signs posted at every entrance clearly stating it's private property and listing our rates. This particular Saturday in mid-October started like any other busy fall day. Families were everywhere, kids were running around the patch, and everyone seemed to be having a great time. I was helping a couple load pumpkins into their car when I noticed something odd happening near the back corner of the property. A white SUV had driven right past our main entrance and parked in the middle of the pumpkin patch. The driver had completely ignored the marked pathways we use to protect the crops and just drove straight through. I watched as a woman got out with what looked like professional camera equipment, followed by a man and 2 young kids. I walked over to see what was going on. As I got closer, I could hear the woman directing a photo shoot. Woman, okay? Everyone gather around this pumpkin. Remember to smile naturally. This is going to look amazing on our Christmas cards. The man was holding a fancy camera, taking shot after shot while the kids posed with various pumpkins. They had spread out a blanket and even brought props: hay bales, fake fall leaves, the whole setup. I approached them politely. After all, maybe they just got confused about where to park. Me, excuse me, folks. I'm the owner here. I noticed you drove past our entrance. You'll need to move your vehicle and check in at the front gate to pay the admission fee." The woman looked at me like I had just asked her to donate a kidney. "Karen, admission fee? This is public land. We can take photos wherever we want." "Me, actually, ma'am, this is private property. It's been in my family for decades. There are signs posted everywhere indicating that." I pointed toward the nearest sign, which was maybe 20 feet away and clearly visible. "Karen, those signs don't mean anything. This is America. Public land means public access." The man with her looked uncomfortable and whispered something to her, but she waved him off. "Karen, we're not hurting anything. We're just taking a few pictures. Don't be so greedy." "Me, ma'am, I understand you want nice photos, but you're parked in the middle of my crops. You're damaging the vines, and you haven't paid the entry fee that helps me keep this place running." "Karen, entry fee? That's ridiculous. Nature should be free. You can't charge people to look at pumpkins." "Me, these aren't wild pumpkins, ma'am. I planted them, watered them, and cared for them all season. This is my business." "Karen, well, your business is built on public land, so that makes it everyone's business." At this point, I realized I wasn't dealing with someone who was going to listen to reason. The woman was getting louder, and other families in the patch were starting to stare. "Me, ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the property immediately. You can either drive out the way you came, or I can call the sheriff's office." "Karen, call them. They'll tell you the same thing I'm telling you. This is public land, and you can't kick us off." So I did exactly that. I pulled out my phone and called the non-emergency number for our county sheriff's office. I explained the situation and asked if a deputy could come out to help resolve a trespassing issue. While we waited, Karen continued her photo shoot like nothing had happened. She had her family posing with my pumpkins, using my property as their personal studio, all while insisting she had every right to be there. "Karen, you're really going to regret this when the police tell you how wrong you are. I know my rights." About 15 minutes later, Deputy Rodriguez arrived. I'd met him before at community events, and he knew our farm well. "Deputy Rodriguez, what seems to be the problem here?" I explained the situation while Karen waited with her arms crossed, looking smug. "Me, they drove past the entrance, refused to pay admission, and insist this is public land even though it's clearly posted as private property." Deputy Rodriguez, "Ma'am, do you have permission to be on this property?" Karen, "I don't need permission. This is public land. Anyone can be here." Deputy Rodriguez, "Ma'am, this is definitely private property. I can see the posted signs from here. The county records show this land belongs to this gentleman and has been in his family for decades." Karen, "That's impossible. Pumpkin patches are public, like parks." Deputy Rodriguez, "No, ma'am, they're not. This is a private business on private land. The owner has the right to charge admission and ask people to leave." I could see the realization starting to dawn on Karen's face, but she wasn't ready to give up. "Karen, well, we're already here. Can't we just finish taking our pictures? We'll be done in 10 minutes. "Me, ma'am, you've been here for over 30 minutes without permission. You drove through my crops, and you refused to pay when I asked nicely." Deputy Rodriguez, "Ma'am, you need to leave the property immediately. Since you were asked to leave and refused, I'm going to issue you a citation for trespassing." Karen, "A ticket? This is harassment. I'm going to sue everyone involved." Deputy Rodriguez, "That's your right, ma'am, but right now I need to see your driver's license." The deputy wrote her a ticket for $150 while her family stood there looking mortified. The husband kept apologizing under his breath, and the kids just wanted to leave. After they drove away, Deputy Rodriguez stayed to chat for a few minutes. Deputy Rodriguez, "Sorry you had to deal with that. Some people just don't understand that private property means private property. Me, I've been doing this for 5 years, and I've never had someone be that insistent that they belonged here." Deputy Rodriguez, "The entitlement is amazing sometimes. By the way, you might want to add some more signs near that back entrance. Make them really clear about the trespassing consequences." I took his advice and put up bigger, more detailed signs the next week. Word must have gotten around town about what happened because I had several neighbors stop by to tell me they supported what I did. The best part? 2 weeks later, I got a check in the mail for $10 with a note from Karen's husband apologizing for his wife's behavior and asking if they could come back sometime to properly visit the farm. I wrote back and told him they were welcome anytime. I never heard from Karen again, but every October since then, I think about that day whenever I see someone trying to sneak onto the property. Most people are reasonable when you explain the rules, but every now and then, you meet someone who thinks the world revolves around them. Story 3. Let me give you some background first. I'm a youth soccer coach for kids aged 8-12. I've been doing this for about 3 years now, ever since my nephew joined the local league, and they desperately needed volunteers. The pay is basically nothing, but seeing these kids improve their skills and have fun makes it worth it. We practice twice a week and have games on Saturdays. Our usual field was being renovated, so the city assigned us to use the large open field at Riverside Park for the month. It's a public space that anyone can use. Families have picnics there. People walk their dogs, kids play frisbee, you name it. The park rules clearly state that it's first come, first served for organized activities, and you just need to be respectful of others using the space. So last Saturday, I arrived at the field around 9 and with my team of 12 kids, all excited for their weekly game. We set up our portable goals and started our warm-up routine. The kids were in great spirits, and their parents had set up chairs along the sideline to watch. Everything was going perfectly normal. About 20 minutes into our game, this woman in expensive yoga gear marched over to our group. She had that look on her face that immediately told me trouble was coming. "Karen, excuse me, you need to move your little game somewhere else." Me, "I'm sorry, what? We reserved this field through the city parks department." Karen, "Well, I teach a yoga class here every Saturday at 9:30, and we need this entire space. Your kids are being way too loud and disruptive." I checked my watch. It was only 9:25, and our game was scheduled until 11 a.m. "Me, ma'am, this is a public field. We got here first, and we have just as much right to use it as anyone else. There's plenty of space for both activities." The field was huge, easily big enough for a soccer game on one end and a yoga class on the other. But she wasn't having any of it. "Karen, no, you don't understand. My yoga class has been meeting here for 6 months. We have priority. These children are ruining the peaceful atmosphere we need for our practice." One of the parents, a dad whose son was playing goalie, stood up from his chair. "Parent, lady, kids playing soccer in a park isn't exactly unusual. Maybe you should find an indoor studio if you need complete silence." Karen's face turned red, and she started raising her voice. "Karen, I'm not asking, I'm telling you. My students pay good money for a quality yoga experience, and your screaming children are completely unacceptable." The kids had stopped playing at this point and were all staring at this woman who was now yelling at their coach and parents. Some of the younger ones looked genuinely scared. "Me, look, I understand you want to have your class, but we're not moving. We have every right to be here, and the kids were here first. You're welcome to set up on the other side of the field." That's when she completely lost it. "Karen, fine. If you won't be reasonable, I'll make sure your little game can't continue." And with that, she walked right onto the field and planted herself directly in the center circle. She crossed her arms and just stood there with this smug look on her face. The kids looked at me confused. A few of them asked if the game was over. The parents were getting increasingly angry, and I could hear them muttering about calling security. "Me, ma'am, you need to get off the field. You're disrupting our game and potentially putting yourself in danger." "Karen, I'm not moving until you agree to relocate your activity. This is a peaceful protest." She then sat down cross-legged right in the middle of the field and closed her eyes like she was meditating. The kids were starting to get restless, and their parents were furious. That's when I remembered seeing a park ranger's truck in the parking lot earlier. I told the parents to keep an eye on the kids and jogged over to find help. I found the ranger, a middle-aged guy named Officer Martinez according to his name tag, doing his rounds near the playground. I quickly explained the situation, and he followed me back to the field with a very serious expression. Officer Martinez, ma'am, I need you to move off this field immediately. Karen didn't even open her eyes. Karen, I'm not doing anything wrong. This is a public park, and I have just as much right to be here as anyone else. Officer Martinez, actually, you're in violation of City Ordinance 12.3 willful obstruction of permitted recreational activities. You need to move now, or I'll have to issue you a citation. Karen's eyes snapped open, and she looked genuinely shocked. Karen, you can't be serious. I'm just sitting here peacefully. These people are the ones being disruptive with their loud sports activity. Officer Martinez, ma'am, interfering with scheduled activities on public recreational space is a misdemeanor. This is your final warning. She still didn't move. I think she thought he was bluffing. Officer Martinez pulled out his citation book and started writing. The scratching of his pen was the only sound on the entire field. Officer Martinez, Karen Johnson, you're being cited for obstruction of public recreational facilities. The fine is $150, and if you don't move immediately, I'll also cite you for refusing to comply with a lawful order from a park official. Karen finally stood up, her face now pale. Karen, this is ridiculous. I'm going to contest this. My lawyer will hear about this harassment. Officer Martinez, that's your right, ma'am. You can contest it in municipal court. The information is on the back of your citation. As Karen stormed off the field, she turned back to yell at all of us. Karen, this isn't over. I'll be back next week, and I'll make sure you people understand who really belongs in this park. Officer Martinez, ma'am, if you return and disrupt these activities again, you'll be charged with criminal trespass. I'd strongly advise you to find a different location for your yoga class. Karen snatched the citation from his hand and marched off toward the parking lot. We could hear her car tires squealing as she drove away. Officer Martinez apologized to the kids and parents for the disruption and told us to call park services immediately if she showed up again and caused problems. The kids were able to finish their game, though they were pretty wound up after all the excitement. Several parents thanked me for handling the situation calmly and getting the proper authorities involved instead of escalating things further. The best part? Karen never showed up again. We finished out our month using that field without any further incidents. I heard through the grapevine that she tried to contest the ticket in court and ended up having to pay court fees on top of the original fine when the judge ruled against her. Sometimes standing your ground and following proper procedures really does pay off. Story 4. I've worked at the city aquarium for 3 years now. Started as a summer job during college and ended up staying because I genuinely love marine biology and educating people about ocean life. Most visitors are great kids with wide eyes asking questions, adults genuinely interested in learning. But some days you get people who think the entire place exists solely for their entertainment. Last Saturday was one of those days. I was stationed at the shark exhibit, my favorite spot. We have 6 sand tiger sharks in a massive tank that holds over 300,000 gallons of water. The viewing area has thick reinforced glass panels and clear signs everywhere explaining proper behavior around the exhibit. I was in the middle of my usual educational talk about shark behavior when this woman walked up with her 2 kids. The children seemed excited and well-behaved, probably around 8 and 10 years old. The woman, however, had this look on her face like she owned the place. I continued my presentation, explaining how sharks are actually quite shy and tend to stay in deeper areas of the tank during busy periods. Woman, excuse me, where are the sharks? Me, they're right there, ma'am. See those shadows in the back corner? That's where they like to rest during the day. Woman, well, I can barely see them. My kids want to see sharks up close. Can't you make them come over here? Me, I'm sorry, but we can't control where the sharks choose to swim. They're wild animals with their own behaviors and preferences. Woman, that's ridiculous. We paid good money to see sharks, not an empty tank. Me, if you wait a few minutes, they often become more active. I can tell you some interesting facts about sand tiger sharks while we wait. She rolled her eyes and walked closer to the glass. That's when things started going downhill fast. The woman began tapping on the glass with her knuckles. Not gentle taps, but loud, aggressive knocking. Me, ma'am, please don't tap on the glass. It stresses the animals and can damage the tank. Woman, I'm just trying to get their attention. Come on, sharks, swim over here. Her kids looked embarrassed. The older one tugged on her sleeve. Kid, Mom, the man said not to do that. Woman, don't tell me how to parent my children. These sharks need to earn their keep. She started pounding harder on the glass with her fists. Other visitors stopped to stare. Some parents started moving their children away from the area. Me, ma'am, I need you to stop immediately. You're disturbing the animals and other guests. Woman, I want to see the manager. This is unacceptable. We drove 2 hours to get here, and my kids deserve to see sharks swimming around, not hiding in the corner like lazy pets. I called for backup on my radio while trying to stay calm. The sharks had actually started moving, which was not a good sign. When sharks get agitated, they can hurt themselves or damage tank equipment. My supervisor arrived within minutes. Before he could even introduce himself, the woman launched into her demands. Woman, your employee is being completely unhelpful. I want those sharks to swim closer to the glass so my children can see them properly. Isn't that what we're paying for? Supervisor, ma'am, our marine animals are not performers. They swim where they feel comfortable and safe. Banging on the glass is prohibited for their well-being. Woman, this is absolutely ridiculous. At SeaWorld, the dolphins do tricks. Why can't your sharks do something? She resumed pounding on the glass, even harder this time. That's when the tank's safety alarm system activated. Red lights started flashing, and an automated voice announced that the exhibit was temporarily closed for animal safety. Security arrived as the woman continued her assault on the tank. The sharks were now swimming erratically, clearly stressed by the vibrations and noise. Security guard, ma'am, you need to leave this area immediately. Woman, I'm not going anywhere until these sharks perform for my children. We have rights as paying customers. Security guard, you're being escorted out of the building. Your membership privileges are revoked indefinitely. Woman, you can't do this. I'll sue. I'll write reviews everywhere. My husband is a lawyer. As security led her away, still screaming threats, her children apologized to me. The older kid looked mortified. Kid, sorry, mister. Mom gets really angry sometimes. Are the sharks okay? Me, they'll be fine, buddy. Thanks for being respectful. It took nearly an hour for the sharks to calm down and for us to reopen the exhibit. We had to file an incident report, and the woman was permanently banned from all city aquarium facilities. 2 days later, our manager showed me the review she left online 1 star, claiming we had lazy sharks and rude staff who don't care about customer satisfaction. Fortunately, other visitors who witnessed the incident left their own reviews explaining what really happened. The best part came a week later when the woman tried to sneak back in with different clothes and sunglasses. Our security team recognized her immediately, and she was escorted out again, this time with a trespassing warning from the police. Some people just can't accept that the world doesn't revolve around them. At least the sharks are back to their normal, peaceful behavior. Story 5. I've been working as a parks maintenance supervisor for the city for about 8 years now. It's not glamorous work, but I love keeping our public spaces beautiful for everyone to enjoy. The job mostly involves routine maintenance, landscaping, and dealing with the occasional vandalism. What I wasn't prepared for was dealing with entitled parents who think public property is their personal playground. Last Tuesday started like any other day. I was doing my morning rounds at Riverside Park, checking on the various installations and making sure everything was in good order. The centerpiece of our park is this beautiful decorative fountain that was installed 3 years ago as part of a downtown revitalization project. It cost the city about $40,000 and features intricate stonework with water cascading down multiple tiers. It's not designed for people to get in. There are clear signs posted around it stating, "Do not enter" and "Decorative feature only." Around noon, I was trimming some hedges nearby when I heard loud splashing and children screaming with excitement. I looked over and couldn't believe what I was seeing. 2 kids, probably around 6 and 8 years old, were completely soaked and climbing all over the fountain like it was their personal jungle gym. They were standing on the decorative elements, jumping from tier to tier, and basically treating it like a swimming pool. I immediately walked over to assess the situation. That's when I saw her, a woman in her 30s, sitting on a nearby bench, scrolling through her phone like nothing was happening. She was clearly the mother because she had the same blonde hair as the kids and was keeping one eye on them while texting. "Excuse me, ma'am. Your children need to get out of the fountain immediately. It's not safe and it's against city regulations." She looked up from her phone with this annoyed expression, like I was bothering her during something important. "Karen, oh, come on, they're just having fun. It's basically a public pool anyway." "No ma'am, it's actually a decorative fountain. There are signs posted that clearly state it's not for public use. The water isn't treated for swimming, and the structure isn't designed to support people climbing on it." "Karen, are you serious right now? My tax dollars paid for this thing, so my kids can use it however they want." I tried to remain professional, but I could already see some damage. One of the decorative stone pieces had a visible crack where the older kid had jumped on it, and there were muddy footprints all over the carefully maintained stonework. "I understand your frustration, but this fountain cost the city $40,000 to install. Your children have already caused visible damage to the stonework. I'm going to have to ask you to remove them immediately, and I'll need to file an incident report." That's when she completely lost it. "Karen, an incident report? Are you kidding me? They're just kids being kids. This is supposed to be a family-friendly park." "Ma'am, please lower your voice. Yes, it's family-friendly, but that doesn't mean children can climb on city property and cause damage. Look at that crack in the stone tier." She stood up and marched over to where I was pointing, her kids still splashing around despite our conversation. "Karen, that tiny little thing? That could have been there before. You can't prove my angels caused that." Ma'am, I inspect this fountain every morning. That damage wasn't there 3 hours ago. I'm going to have to issue a citation for property damage." I pulled out my citation book, which is standard procedure for any damage to city property over $50. The repair cost for that stonework would definitely exceed that threshold. "Karen, you've got to be joking. I want to speak to your manager. This is harassment." She was getting louder and more aggressive, and other park visitors were starting to stare. Her kids were still in the fountain, now throwing handfuls of water at each other. Ma'am, I am the supervisor for this section. Can you please get your children out of the fountain while we discuss this?" "Karen, no, they're staying right where they are until someone with actual authority shows up." At this point, she started screaming at the top of her lungs about how I was ruining her children's day and how the city was wasting taxpayer money on useless decorations instead of real amenities for families. Her voice was echoing across the entire park. I radioed for backup because the situation was clearly escalating beyond what I could handle alone. Within about 10 minutes, 2 police officers arrived on the scene. "Officer 1, what seems to be the problem here?" Karen immediately turned her attention to the officers, apparently thinking they would take her side. "Karen, finally, this man is harassing me and my children. He's trying to find me because my kids were playing in a public fountain that my tax dollars paid for." "Officer 1, Ma'am, can you please step back and lower your voice? The officer then turned to me for my side of the story. Me, officers, the children were climbing in our decorative fountain despite posted signage prohibiting it. They've caused visible damage to the stonework, and when I attempted to issue a standard citation, the mother became verbally aggressive and refused to remove the children from city property. Officer 2, are the children still in the fountain? We all looked over, and sure enough, both kids were still splashing around, now completely ignoring the chaos their mother was causing. Officer 1, ma'am, you need to get your children out of there immediately. Karen, this is ridiculous. It's a fountain with water in it. What do you expect kids to do when they see water? Officer 2, we expect them to follow posted rules and regulations. Ma'am, can you please remove them now? Finally, she stomped over to the fountain and yanked both kids out, who immediately started crying and complaining. Kid 1, but Mom, we were having fun. Karen, I know, sweetie. These mean people don't want you to have any fun. She was clearly trying to make me and the officers look like the bad guys in front of her children. Officer 1, ma'am, is this your first warning, or have you been cited for similar violations before? Karen, this is completely insane. I've never been cited for anything in my life. This is discrimination against families. Officer 2, it's not discrimination, ma'am. These rules apply to everyone equally. I showed the officers the damage to the fountain and explained that the repair estimate would likely be several $100s because the stonework was custom-made for this installation. Officer 1, based on the visible property damage, we're going to have to support the citation. You'll receive a notice in the mail with the fine amount and instructions for payment or contesting the citation. That's when she really went nuclear. Karen, this is America. I have rights. You can't tell me what my children can and cannot do in a public park. I'm calling my lawyer. I'm calling the mayor. I'm calling the news. This is going to be all over social media. She was screaming so loudly that more people had gathered to watch the spectacle. Her kids were crying, other families were staring, and she was making a complete fool of herself. Officer 2, ma'am, if you continue to cause a disturbance, we'll have to cite you for disorderly conduct as well. Karen, fine, but this isn't over. I know people, important people. You'll all be hearing from my lawyer. She grabbed her kid's hands and stormed off toward the parking lot, still yelling about how unfair everything was and how she was going to make sure everyone knows about this injustice. After she left, several other park visitors came up to thank me for handling the situation. Apparently, they'd been watching her kids destroy the fountain for about 20 minutes before I arrived, and they were frustrated that no one was supervising them. The real kicker came about 2 weeks later. I was doing my morning rounds again when I saw her marching back into the park with a man in a cheap suit who I assumed was her lawyer. They made a beeline for the fountain, and I watched from a distance as the man examined the damage. They spent about 10 minutes taking photos and having what looked like a heated discussion. Then they approached me. Lawyer, excuse me, are you the supervisor who cited my client? Me, yes, I am. Lawyer, I'm here to investigate the validity of this citation on behalf of my client. Karen, see, I told you I had a lawyer. The lawyer walked around the fountain, looking at the signs and examining the damage. After a few minutes, he pulled Karen aside and they had a whispered conversation. I could see her face getting redder and redder as he talked. Lawyer, ma'am, I'm afraid I can't help you with this case. Karen, what do you mean you can't help me? Lawyer, the signage is clearly posted, the damage is obvious, and your children were caught in the act by a city employee. There's no legal basis to contest this citation. Karen, but you're supposed to be on my side. Lawyer, I'm supposed to represent you within the bounds of the law. This citation appears to be completely valid. He handed her back what I assumed was her retainer check and walked away, leaving her standing there with her mouth hanging open. She looked at me with pure hatred in her eyes, but there was nothing left for her to say. She'd played all her cards and lost every hand. Karen, This isn't over. Me, actually, ma'am, I think it is. She turned and walked away, and I haven't seen her in the park since. The fountain was repaired the following week at a cost of $650, which she had to pay in addition to the initial citation fee. The best part? About a month later, the city installed additional fencing around the fountain and upgraded the signage to include warnings about fines for property damage. Now there's no ambiguity whatsoever about what's allowed and what isn't. Sometimes people think that being loud and demanding will get them what they want. But in my experience, the law doesn't care how entitled you feel.